Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging, dude?
It's hanging. It's we're doing well over here. We're in the midst of a very busy season. April is almost upon us. We got some NCAA basketball we're going to talk about. We got some more prospects that Chad loves just looking at all day long, and we're going to talk about those guys. And me, it's not nothing too crazy. It's a calm time of the year for me, but an exciting time in sports. So that's kind of
It is.
I've been getting it all in. I've been absorbing pretty much everything. And the playoffs for the NBA and the NHL are right around the corner. So I'm really excited about that. And the draft. April's going to be sick, but we're here. We're in March. It's about the last podcast in March. So I'm ready to get
Crazy.
into
It's
it. Yeah.
crazy to it's crazy to think that we're already almost done with March. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I woke up and yesterday was the beginning of March and I was stoked for March Madness.
Hmm.
Tanner pretty much nailed it. The first part of this episode, we're gonna do a little bit of NFL draft talk. I'm gonna give you guys some defensive tackles, some interior defensive linemen on this episode. We got 6 prospects that I'm gonna go through kind of real quick and just break them down for my prospect profiles. And then then we got linebackers and defensive backs left. And then we've gone through every single position on this show. So if you've been here the whole time, thanks for learning football with us. And like Tanner said, after the football talk, we're going to jump into some basketball talk and talk about March Madness. Unfortunately, Tanner and I's alma mater did get beat, but we won't divulge too far into that until we get into that March Madness talk. But now we're going to start with some prospect profiles. Like I said, defensive tackles. These are going to be NCAA prospects that are heading into the NFL draft. The NFL draft is in April, the end of April. And Tanner and I are actually going to be live streaming the first round of the NFL draft on our YouTube channel. So go to RDH Sports. If you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button and then you can watch us live. We're going to live stream the first round of the NFL draft. So it's going to be super fun. We're going to have all these picks being exactly who was picked is going to be going on the bottom of the screen. We're going to have round one, pick one, exactly right there. You're going to see everybody going. I'm going to be going in depth with all these prospects. Tanner's going to be there because he's the engineer and the brains behind this whole thing. So come hang out with us on the first round of the NFL draft. Right when it starts, Tanner and I are going to be live streaming the whole thing. We're super excited for it. But nonetheless, we're going to jump into these prospect profiles. First defensive tackle we're going to talk about is from Texas, not the defensive tackle you're thinking of. This is T'Vondre Sweat. The draft grade for me is going to be a late third round. Draft projection is going to be mid to late third round. Defensive tackles, that's a defensive position, but this guy caught a TD in the Big 12 championship game. That alone showed me he's got a great amount of athleticism. Because if you're 300 plus pound big boy and you're used to just running in the trenches and stopping runs and being that run stopper or that person to go get the quarterback, you know what I mean? And now this guy's catching an actual pass. So yeah, he's got a little bit of hands too. He's a true run stuffing and a pretty solid pass rushing defensive tackle. Big time versatility from this player. He has quickness that most defensive tackles do not have. I'm actually interested to see if he is going to continue at the defensive tackle position because he's such a good run stopper and he can get to the quarterback extremely well. I'm almost wondering if they line him up on a little bit different parts of the line, just kind of like they did with Aaron Donald. T'Vondre Sweat's a guy in the third round that's solid. Jumping to my next prospect, Brandon Dorlus, a defensive tackle out of Oregon. He's going to be a senior. His draft grade is going to be a late third round. Draft projection is also going to be mid third round. He's a 3-year starter with 9 total sacks, but averaged over 30 quarterback hurries. So this is a solid player. If you're averaging that many quarterback hurries in your career in college, that means you're getting to the quarterback pretty much every single game. He's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle than a run stopper to me. So I would have liked to see those sack numbers kind of go up a little bit. But I think this guy needs some coaching. And like I said, he's a day 2 prospect, round 3. He could fall into round 4. I actually am really interested to see how Dorlus kind of goes on the draft board because T'Vondre Sweat is a guy that's really toward the end of the prospect list, in my opinion, but can potentially jump up to even be number 2 or 3. Um, Jumping to the next defensive tackle, this is a guy that you've probably heard about. His name's Chris Jenkins. He's a defensive tackle out of Michigan. He's also a senior. Draft grade for me is actually going to be in the second round, a late second round, and draft projection is going to be late second, early third. So very, very limited sack numbers in college, but an extremely powerful defensive tackle in this class. His strength and power are Jenkins' best attributes. Run stopping defensive tackle to me. He's not afraid at all to get down and dirty in the trenches. And projecting this player as a run stopper at the next level with the versatility to pass rush every now and then. So I think you're going to see this defensive tackle in on first and second down, just because on first and second down, a lot of teams in the NFL rush, especially on first down. You're going to see this guy in obvious running situations, especially on goal line. He's a plug that you just stick in there and don't get past him. But I do think he's going to be better than the defensive tackle prospects as of late that's come out of Michigan. No offense to Mozzie Smith. Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle out of Florida State, senior. Draft grade is going to be late second round, early third. Draft projection is going to be late second, early third. This is crazy to me because Fisk was the number one defensive tackle coming into the country this year on a lot of experts, and now he's kind of gone down a little bit. And that's because the other two ahead of him are just absolutely insane. But Florida State, another Florida State Seminole that's going to get drafted this year, most likely in the second round. I don't see him jumping up to the first, but second, third round. So, like I said, another Florida State. Florida State's having a heck of a year and going to have a heck of a draft. Hats off to the coaching staff, first of all, for the recruiting class. If you're putting that many players into the NFL, it's pretty impressive. Personally, this player hasn't gotten better each season to me, and that's why he kind of falls to the end of the second round. I need to see more consistency from this player, and I need to see him develop on both pass rushing and run stopping. Overall, in Fisk, that's a hard name to say. Last 3 seasons, he had 18 tackles, 18 sacks, and 77 quarterback hurries. So last 3 years, you're averaging about 6 sacks a season, and then you're averaging, close to 20, 30 quarterback hurries a season. So that's not bad. You know what I mean? You're getting a quarterback hurry every single game pretty much, so it shows he's in the backfield. But when he was a junior coming into a senior year, I thought he was going to kind of separate himself from the pack, but he really didn't. He put himself in the middle of that pack, in my opinion. So we'll see where he goes, but I think he's the third ranked prospect for me. And then we jump to the second prospect for me. I mean, my goodness. I don't think I've ever had as much fun watching Illinois college play, but this kid's insane. Jerzon Newton, like I said, he's from Illinois, defensive tackle. Junior is going to be his classification. Draft grade's mid-first round. This is a mid-first round defensive tackle at the least. Draft projection is going to be a mid to late first round. Prospect with not a ton of folks are talking about. Newton doesn't have the upside that Murphy II does out of UT, but Newton does have the stats to back it up. Personally, this is the last first-rounded graded defensive tackle for me, and it shows because I don't even have an early second-round defensive tackle. So you really have Murphy II out of Texas, and then Newton out of Illinois, and then you have a huge gap until you get to the second tier of defensive tackles for me. So it shows how vital he is to pick Newton or Murphy II earlier than needed in the first round. So I think what I'm saying is you're going to start to see some teams reach on defensive tackles because the two of them are going to be so much higher value than the others, in my opinion. His last 2 seasons, it's been impressive. 12 sacks, 64 quarterback hurries. I'd say to me, he's about a 55-45 split with pass rushing and run blocking. Impressive and versatile player at the next level. Last prospect profile of the episode, Byron Murphy II. Had to save him to the end. Defensive tackle out of the University of Texas. Junior is his classification. Draft grade is going to be a mid-first round. Draft projection is going to be in early to mid at the absolute latest. He had one heck of a junior season where he had over 25 quarterback hurries from the defensive tackle position. This is more of a pass rushing defensive tackle as opposed to a run stopper. The winner of the NFL Combine posting quite literally video game like numbers. And since that performance has completely shot all the way up to the top of the draft boards. Okay, we are back, folks, and we had some technical difficulties. Someone ding-dong-ditched Tanner in the middle of me going in on these prospects. So I'm going to go in again.
What the heck?
On Byron Murphy II. Hopefully no more ding-dong-ditching. And, hey, guys, we know we're good at what we do, but you just got to kind of chill out.
Yeah,
hey, kind of record.
You got questions, you can hit us up on social media. We got a website. You don't got to come to the door if you want to learn about the prospects. We got the internet.
Yeah, just rdhsports.net, rdh.sports on Instagram, rdh.sports on on Twitter, and on TikTok. So anytime you want to talk sports, just send us a message. We'll reply. Won't be right away, I can tell you that, but we will reply. Last prospect profile of the day. Byron Murphy II, the defensive tackle out of Texas, junior, draft grades in mid-first round. Draft projection is in early to mid-first round. Murphy II had one heck of a junior season. He had over 25 quarterback hurries from the defensive tackle position. That's ridiculous. And he's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle as opposed to a run stopper. The absolute 100% winner of the NFL Combine, posting quite literally video game like numbers. And since that performance, has completely shot up draft boards and has solidified himself, in my opinion, as a top 10 pick in this draft. That's right. Top 10 defensive tackle. I know it's scary, but this is a guy that is the best defensive tackle in this class and is going to be a pain in the ass to line up against for many Sundays to come. Last thing I'll say about this prospect. Not only did he break combine numbers, he broke records at the defensive tackle position. That's terrifying. And we all know how a defensive tackle and how a defensive line can absolutely win you games and win you championships. We've seen it multiple times. Defensive tackle Aaron Donald quite literally won many games, Super Bowls. Von Miller, Super Bowls. These guys are extremely important. I know Von Miller's more of a defensive end, not a defensive tackle. I'm not saying Von Miller's a defensive tackle. Don't jump on me online yet. Haha, gotcha. But Byron Murphy II is a guy that I would put a top 10 pick on. And for me, I'm not a fan of taking a defensive tackle in the top 10 or a tight end in the top 10 unless they have the caliber that this player has. So Byron Murphy II, he was not the highest rated defensive tackle. I don't even think before the NFL Combine. I think the NFL Combine, there was other defensive tackles ahead of him, in my opinion. The kid out of Illinois, Newton, I think was ahead of him. Fisk out of Florida State, I think was ahead of him. So there's a lot of guys that were ahead of him, and then he has this insane combine, and all of a sudden he's the next big thing. Now, how much do you value the NFL Combine, right? How much do you value the pro days of these guys, right? Because Tanner, if you're on Instagram and you're scrolling on SportsCenter, you saw Jalen Milton from Tennessee throw an 80-yard, just what? You know what I mean? He throws an 80-yard bomb. 80-yard bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, couple things with that clip, right? This is why we're the sports podcast. We like to break things down, especially with these NFL prospects. 80 yards. Phew. Can't teach that. You know what I mean? You get arm strength, but some people have it, and he's one of the only guys in the NFL that has it. I don't even know if Josh Allen can throw 80 yards. Now, is Milton actually going to be able to complete an 80-yard pass with pads on, fatigued, and in the middle of a game with 100,000 fans screaming in his face? Probably not. Probably going to have to cap it around, 50 to 60, right? Now, of course, and I'm not saying he's going to never complete an 80-yard pass in his career. I'm saying that ball soared 80 freaking yards. That's not an 80-yard pass. That ball is quite literally going in the air for 80 yards. It's not a 50-yard catch or a 10-yard screen. The receiver takes it to the house. He threw that thing 80 yards. But what I'm saying is you can't necessarily teach that, right? And there was a prospect by the name of Josh Allen out of the University of Wyoming that I didn't give a chance in hell to. And I'm the first to admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong about that guy. I was big time wrong about that guy. He didn't have the best accuracy coming out of college. Didn't have the best numbers coming out of Wyoming. But then you saw the power of that arm. And you went, oh, shit. Okay. Well, if he can rile in that cannon, you know what I mean? Then, I've never seen someone throw a harder ball than Brett Favre. And you look at Josh Allen throw a ball and it's like, you know what I mean? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So you have multiple guys in this draft class that can throw a ton. They can throw a crazy amount, right? Joe Milton's that guy from Tennessee. And even whenever you saw Caleb Williams pro day, the number 1 rated quarterback prospect, he threw a 70-yarder. Okay. No pads, nothing else on. Nobody's in his face, nothing. So I just wanted to point that out, call out these prospects. And then last thing I wanted to talk about on the NFL draft side, and this is not just me, this is Tanner and I kind of go in on the prospect profiles, but Tanner, I got to ask you something. So, Tanner and I are Dallas Cowboy fans. Yeah, maybe a little biased every now and then, but I think this applies for pretty much everybody picking after the top 5, I'd say. Is it your dream scenario if 3 quarterbacks go, picks 1, 2, and 3? Is that your dream scenario if you were a team anywhere between 5 and 10? That's your dream scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me throw the actual question at you now. What do you do at number 9 if you're the Chicago Bears?
I mean, it depends, but like it's a nice little position. If like you said, quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, uh, look out for a trade up. You know what I mean? It's a good pick if you want to go get that star wide receiver that you want to pair in that offense. Obviously
Marvin Harrison Jr.
You don't know if he's going to still be there at number 4 or 5. If the first 3 are,
he won't be at 5.
That's what I'm saying. So you might have to settle for like a Malik Neighbors, or someone like that. But that's not like settling,
Yeah.
So it's like I think you just want those receivers to fall, especially if you're Chicago at number 9. I mean, they have some good receivers with Keenan Allen. They went and got him. So maybe they're not looking receiver, but best player available. You know what I mean? I don't think if you're at that number 9 pick and some guys fall, I don't think you're sitting and picking. I think you're going to trade up and try and get a young guy who's not going to cost you anything, who's going to be great for 4 years. You know what I mean? And then you can figure out the Keenan Allen situation, the DJ Moore situation later. You go get Marvin Harris or one of these young guys and put them at number 3. I think you'll be just fine. So, no, I think that number 9 spot's really good because it lets you sit back and if you want, you can see how the picks fall and you can trade back and you can do what you like with that and you can get some extra capital, people who want to jump in, or you can be the one who jumps in and get a big time prospect, kind of like Houston did in this past draft, but with Will Anderson Jr. and CJ Stroud. So I think it's a good formula. You're not very far off of a top pick at number 9. Now, of course, once you start getting lower and lower and lower, it gets a little bit harder, but I think in terms of like we're Cowboys fans, like they pick at what, like 24. A lot of people are going to fall. It just always happens every single year. It does. It's just kind of depending on like who's going to fall. But, someone gets down into 15, 16, you're less than 10 spots away. I think, yeah, if you could try and trade up for them at that point. It doesn't really matter, even if you're not the Cowboys, even if you're someone sitting at like 27 and they get to like 17, 18, and that's your guy. I don't know, maybe try and trade up. Maybe it gets within 5, definitely trade up. So I think we're going to see that a lot because there's a lot of these really good guys. And it's interesting to see where they're going to fall because a lot of them are top tier talent.
Yeah. And I mean, you have so many teams in this draft that have not so many. You have a limited number of teams that have 2 picks in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's a lot of capital. That is a lot of capital. Chicago sitting there at number 9. That's a huge pick. You know what I mean? That is an absolute huge pick. And remember that Chicago has, the very first pick. And no, they gave away their second round pick. They don't have their second round pick. That's right, because of the trade. The Carolina Panthers are sitting there with number 1 in the second round, then New England, then Arizona, then Washington. I totally spaced that they didn't have that pick. So here's the thing. I wanted to ask that question because I think we can all say, especially the Justin Fields leaving, that
Mm-hmm.
okay. Okay. If you don't want, if Caleb Williams is not your guy, that's fine. On this show, he's my guy. Okay. He's going number 1. Okay. So Caleb's going number 1. We're going to lock that in right now. Caleb's locked in at number 1. I just gave you away the first pick of my mock draft. Dang it. Number 2, Washington. That is a quarterback, I think, especially because they got rid of their guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jaden Daniels or it's Drake May. I wouldn't take Drake May. I'd take Jaden Daniels. Then you have New England at number 3 with a new GM, a new coach, multiple new coaches on that coaching staff. You have no clue what's going to happen at number 3. So I think the biggest question, or I think the draft this year starts at pick number 3. I really do, because I think picks number 1 and pick number 2, for sure pick 1's locked. Pick 2's not necessarily locked, but the position's locked, in my opinion. And then New England, no clue. because New England's a team that could get some guy out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, it'd pick 3. And then next year he's a Hall of Famer. But remember, Belichick's not there now. And they have a lot of different folks. So, and then you have other teams like the Minnesota Vikings with 2 picks that just lost their quarterback. So I think, in my opinion, that's a possible scenario. They have number 11, and then they have a pick in the early 20s. I want to say it's 23 between Philadelphia and Dallas. Does number 11 and number 23 give you the ammo to get up to 7, 8,
maybe
6? Does it give you the ammo? Right? It could. We've seen Philly trade a whole lot less and get up a whole lot higher. Right? Every year in the draft, you never know. Some teams just really want these draft picks. So we'll see what happens this year, but I think this draft is going to be a fun one. And I think there's going to be a lot of trades in this draft. And also that I've never seen the amount of prospects rise and fall like this draft. I've never seen it. Caleb Williams, in my opinion, has been the only prospect that hasn't risen and fallen. Oh, just kidding. Right in the middle of the season, everyone's like, what the hell's going on with Caleb? You know what I mean? You get to this process and everybody goes, well, Michael Penix Jr., look at him. Look how he performed in the national championship. Look how he performed in the college football summit. Like, come on. This guy's a lock. He's a lock top 5 pick. And then you get to now, he's not projected to go till the end of the second. And now you got J.J. McCarthy. We've got another animal on Tanner's screen. We got J.J. McCarthy. That is projected to jump up now in the top 5. Is that just media smoke? Is that, who knows, right? So you have Caleb Williams that's in the mix at number 1, Drake May that's in the mix at number 1, Jaden Daniels that's in the mix at number 1. I don't think Michael Penix is in the mix, and J.J. McCarthy. Those are 4 players. I don't think Chicago is going to take anybody other than Caleb Williams. But those are the 4 players, in my opinion, that could go between pick 1 and number 2. And I think the only thing we know is that Tanner has a cat on screen right now, and that is a pretty sick-looking cat. That's a pretty sick-looking cat. He's a big fan of Draft Talk. He, she, I don't know. She. I apologize. Last thing about the draft. It's going to be an exciting one. That's pretty much my point about this whole Draft Talk. Is it's going to be an extremely exciting draft. They always are. And catch it on RDH Sports on YouTube. All right. That's enough football talk for this episode. It's March Madness time. We got games to talk about because we had only given you just a little bit of a sneak preview last time we recorded because it was just starting. The tournament was just starting. So for those of you who don't know, Tanner and I went to Texas A&M University, all the gigs, and I'm just going to start there.
Yeah.
If that's okay, Tanner. Cool.
That's a good place to start. I mean, what was the last thing we talked about on this? I think we were in like round 1 the last time we talked about this. So we'll kind of
the very end, there's very limited number of games. We'd only talked about maybe 4 or 5 final scores on the last one. So we can really jump into this.
Like just go round 2 and start there.
Okay. So I'm going to be kind of the one that's asking Tanner the questions here because he's way more of an expert than me on college hoops. Tanner, for those of you who don't know, played in the band at A&M and kind of got to watch these guys and travel with them a little bit. So no big deal. Take me through Texas A&M, Tanner. Take me through kind of the first round of them. I know you said we're starting the second, but just take me through what you saw in that first round of that game, and then take me through that second game because that was a game, and it was a really close game.
Yeah, I mean, touching on Nebraska, that match, 8 versus 9, it wasn't close. It really wasn't. You've seen this entire season, Texas A&M has the ability to put up points, and they can put up a lot of them. But that's really the only thing they're very good with. But whenever you get Nebraska, a team that's kind of got that one superstar, I don't remember his name, but if you watch the game, you know him.
Oh, that kid.
Yeah, that kid.
Talking about like Jeremy Lin type hype.
Yeah, basically. But you know the Lin sanity is now over. A&M won that game and went on to Houston. In Houston, a number 1 seed, pretty dang good. And it's a very similar situation. What kind of happened in that previous game? A&M put up 95, but Houston put up 100. You know what I mean? That game did go to overtime. A&M had a crazy buzzer beater to send it into overtime, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is happening. But you and I kind of talked about it before the episode previously. It's just they just didn't execute at the moments that they needed to. They, like I said, they put up points, and they were scoring really well, but it just wasn't always that consistent. They just didn't look like they were really trying to adapt to the game in that game. It looked like they were just kind of trying to shove a circle peg in like a square hole, and it just wasn't really working. That's just kind of how A&M's offense is. I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like, all right, let's drive the lane. All right, it didn't work. All right, let's drive the lane. All right, it didn't work. All right, let's try. No, it's like, come on. Yeah, come on. Let's pass the ball around. Let's do something different. They were just kind of trying to establish their game, and I get that. It makes sense, but it gets to a point where I think you got to try something different. And Houston was they're a good team. Yeah, they've been there. They've done that. They're very good. I don't think they're going to let this Texas A&M team scare them, but A&M played really well. They played to their strengths. I'll say that. But it just really wasn't that. It wasn't enough. And Houston was able to counter them, I think, in a lot of different ways. But they played well, man. This is probably the best A&M team I've seen since that, Caruso run back in the day when I wasn't even going
in school.
Yeah, I wasn't even at the school yet. So
yeah, that's a funny story. So I was sitting there playing a hockey game, or I was about to play a hockey game, and we are literally in the we are getting dressed in the lobby. For hockey players, you get dressed in the locker room. But A&M, it was 2 minutes left, and A&M made this incredible comeback. The game was postponed and everything. That's what happens when you go to play hockey and you go to a college in a college town. The hockey game gets delayed in the state of Texas. So yeah, I mean, I watched that comeback, right, with Alex Caruso and that team. I mean, they were down by 12 and they came back and they won the game. A&M almost did the exact same thing with one more point, right? Because A&M was down like 13, 14 points at the end of that game and then just came storming back. And then, like you said, nailed the buzzer beater too. But my thing is A&M, you were so close. You had them right where you wanted them. If you bring the number one team in the nation to overtime, you gotta go in. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't. They did everything that they could. You could tell that they left everything out there. And it was a heck of a performance. And I think every A&M fan was happy with that Aggie game because they left it all out there. But still, it was just that close. And that's exciting. That's really exciting times in Texas A&M basketball because, like you said, since the Caruso team, there hasn't been a ton of success. They've beaten Kentucky for some reason, but there hasn't been a ton of success. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see them, and I'm excited to see this class and how they continue to progress, and just, maybe this helps with recruiting a little bit.
And I mean, it just kind of makes you think, like, if you were watching that game, like, I just pulled up the stats. A&M was 29 for 45 from the free throw line. If they had made one more free throw, throughout the entire game, they would have won because of that buzzer beater right at the end. So
it's 20. Now I got to see what the percentage.
It's like 64. It's like 60. Okay. 64.4%. But like, it's not. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I had it pulled up. I had it pulled up. Don't give me that one. I already had it.
Okay.
But like, it just makes you think like, oop, they could have won that game. If they had just, converted on their chances, at least one more of their chances. So it always comes down to that.
You nailed it. I think 64.4% from the free throw lane is unacceptable, right? When you got most NBA players shooting 80. So yeah, you can't. You want to beat the one of the 4 number one teams in the nation. You got to beat them on all cylinders, and you got to lock in everywhere. And clearly, A&M wasn't locked in on that cylinder, and that's where you get points right there. So yeah, shit happens. Who we got next, Tanner?
We're gonna speed run through a couple of them because I'm just gonna keep going down the list through the regions. James Madison and Duke. This is all in the second round. You can go catch the first round if you'd like, but Duke destroyed them. Duke's a really good team, 93-55. It wasn't really a close matchup. I kind of tuned out after a while. And then we're gonna go down to the south, or continue down into the south with NC State and Oakland. And if you remember, that Oakland team was the one that beat Kentucky. And then that was it was that team. And so the NC State team actually beat Texas Tech the round before. So 2 upsets. And then these guys play each other, and it was actually a pretty dang good game. I watched some of that. NC State was just playing really well. Oakland kind of kept crawling back and was like, we just don't know when to die. But NC State went on a run and the game and pulled it out. I think they played really well. This is a good basketball team, and they're an 11 seed, which is pretty awesome. You don't see it too often. These guys doing this well. We'll see if they can continue. They play Marquette, who beat Colorado in that previous round. So we'll see. We'll see what they go on and do with that. Also, not to mention Duke and Houston will be playing in the next round as well. So those are two big games. I do really like the Houston and Duke matchup. I know you've got a lot riding on that. And then that NC State and Marquette game.
That's my bracket, folks. I did a bracket at work, and I'm getting just absolutely smacked. And if I can win that game, I might be able to pull something out. But yeah, no, that's a big game for me. And believe it or not, I picked Houston. That's right, Aggies. I picked against the Aggies. I know. Okay. I can't believe I did it.
I did too. Don't worry. Sorry, guys. I mean, they're number 1 seed. They're pretty good. But yeah, that's gonna be a really good match. Houston and Duke. These guys are juggernauts, basically.
Isn't that on tonight?
It should be.
Oh my goodness.
So get your reading glasses ready for that if you're gonna stay up late. But NC State and Marquette, that'll be a good game too. Marquette's a 2 seed. And they've been a historically good basketball program. So they get, I'd say, an easier matchup in NC State than they possibly could have with whoever could have been coming out of that bracket. So that one should be good. But that's pretty much wrapping up this region. There's 2 more games left in this region, and we'll see who becomes the victor whenever they get to the Elite Eight and see who plays there. But you got any more questions, any more comments about that region, about the South region, and we'll move on to the Midwest?
No, I'm good. I think that, I think you pretty much nailed all of them. I think the biggest game coming out of that region is easily the Duke and Houston game. I think those are the juggernauts. Swinging. That's gonna be a big one.
It will, and not to mention, I kind of forgot Colorado and Florida game. That game was nuts. Colorado 102, Florida beat them, or Florida lost 102 to 100. And that was pretty nuts. That game was a huge upset. Florida's a good team. I watched them a lot. They got a lot of really good players. I think they beat A&M in the SEC tournament, so there you go. But Colorado, man, too bad they didn't meet Marquette. It was a close game though. But moving on to the Midwest region, we got a very, very good matchup with Purdue and Gonzaga. Two kind of historically choky teams, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but someone's got to win, right? The Boilermakers. And we got Gonzaga. And that Gonzaga game, actually, the game that got them over to this round into the Sweet 16, they beat Kansas. And they didn't just beat them. They beat them 89 to 68.
They threw up some J's on the Jayhawks, I'll say that.
They played really well. And I was kind of surprised because Gonzaga, sometimes they like to, like I said, kind of fall off a little bit. But no, this Gonzaga team's for real. I think they are absolutely just locked in. They're ready to go for this tournament. And beating Kansas, one of the better teams in the country, I think that is just a staple win, win, excuse me. And
staple, shit.
Sure, staple works too. But now they get a pretty tough matchup with Purdue. Purdue is not a bad team at all. I just think they get a kind of a bad rap, just for all these kind of things that keep happening to them during the tournament. But
Purdue's got size. That's what this is.
They do. And they're a good team. I promise they're a very, very good team. They got very good players. But that's going to be an interesting match. Tune into that one. I also want to shout out to the Utah State, who Purdue beat. I actually really like that team. I think they were a pretty good team going into it. A little biased. Their name is the Aggies, but Utah State, they were pretty good. That matchup with Purdue, they got destroyed. But it was pretty fun. Got to shout them out there. Let's see. We go down to the rest of the Midwest. Creighton, they played Oregon. They beat them. Tennessee beat Texas, which is actually a really good match. I watched all of that.
What was the Creighton Oregon score?
86 to 73. Creighton kind of.
What was Oregon and Creighton ranked?
Oregon was 11 and Creighton was number 3. So
that's insane. That, to me, basketball is just such a crazy sport because you have a school like Oregon that's ranked 8 spots behind a school that's named Creighton. That's insane. And I've watched them play. Creighton's nasty, and you know what I mean. They deserve the 3 seed. So keep going.
It's good. It was a good match, but it kind of came down, and it was like, all right, well, Creighton's going to win this match. But Texas and Tennessee, that was a good game. Tennessee won 62-58. Texas was a 7 seed. Tennessee was a 2 seed. I think Tennessee absolutely deserved that 2 seed. They're a very good team, and they did not play a good game at all against Texas. I think this is the example of Tennessee's floor. I think that against Texas, this is probably about the worst you're going to see them in this tournament. I really do, because like I said, they're a really good team, and they shoot. These guys are shooters. Like they can just absolutely rip through a team with threes, and they're good at it. So I think they're going to have a good matchup with Creighton. If they play anywhere better against Creighton than they did against Texas, I think they should win this match. I think they're just a high-flying team. When they get hot, they're hard to stop. And Creighton, I don't know, man. It's just I've got a feeling about this Tennessee team. I could be totally wrong, but that's the fun of the tournament. I got to watch that Tennessee team play a lot too in the previous years, and they got a lot of really good players too. But any other questions about that, or we can move on to the other side of the bracket and see what the heck's going on over there.
I think that was really good for me, because I'm not really the biggest college basketball in terms of knowledge. I know a little bit, and a little bit is more than a lot, but a lot of the people. But here's the thing. To me, it's crazy that you said the ceiling or the floor of Tennessee is like 65 points. Like, you just named a Colorado team or a Florida team that had over 100 and lost. Or like, these other games. Like, to me, that's insane that you have that big of a point differential. And it shows you, like, if you're not hitting, you are screwed in this tournament, because some teams are hitting on all cylinders. And that's why it's called March Madness. That's why it's just madness and mayhem the entire time. You have no idea what's going on, right? Because you have like these, like this 15th seeded, this year Long Beach, they ended up losing. Shout out Long Beach, right down the road. And
that's all right.
But still, right? Like miracles and magic can happen. So to me, it's interesting, that you said that about Tennessee. I think I've kept up with Tennessee as well, just because they're kind of in the SEC. You know what I mean? And yeah, I may have tuned into a couple of those games, seeing if I could see you on the TV more than kind of watching the games. But hey, I ended up watching the game, staying the whole time. Tennessee's like a speedy team that can spot up and shoot. So I'm interested to see kind of what they do, and continue this SEC right now, because some of the SEC teams that were picked to go far, Kentucky, didn't do anything, and some SEC teams that were picked to get beat in the first round, A&M, got out of it. So I'm interested to see where the SEC kind of falls in this basketball stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, and Tennessee has this guy. I think his name's like Dalton Connect. I think that's how you say it. But he's really good. I got to watch him in person, and I got to watch him absolutely destroy A&M in person. And so I got a lot of praise for those guys. They're an excellent 3-point shooting team. If Creighton's not on their guard, they're going to get beat, because this team will come at you and they will beat you from any point in the game at any place on the court. So I think they're a very fundamentally sound team, and I think overall they're just a very good team who can do a lot of different things. Now, that being said, we can jump over to the East, where probably the best team who can do the most things in UConn is at, and they're slated to play Illinois. And I actually got to watch Illinois, I think last season in person in Iowa. They were in that little region. But dude, UConn is destroying people. They beat Stetson by like 40 something points, which is kind of gross. They destroyed San Diego State by 30. They beat Northwestern by a lot as well. It's just like that these games aren't close. You know what I mean? Like UConn is just by hands and toes, knees and whatever, above everyone else that they're playing. I think that they're just a disgusting team. I thought San Diego State was a good team. Like going into them, like this is a good team. I think they played really well. Saw them make a run last year, I think, and it was just like, I guess they're not that good. They only put up 50 against UConn, but I think that you just got to give UConn a lot of credit. They're holding their opponents to around 50 every single game, and it doesn't really matter who it is. So it doesn't matter what, they're just balling. They can score, they can defend, they can do everything. That's why they're the national champs. So I think they're going to continue strong, and they're the overall 1 seed. But that being said, I think them playing Illinois, they just got out of a pretty close game with Iowa State. I watched the end of that. It was kind of a crazy little thing to end the game there. It went down to the wire. And Iowa State's not a bad team, but Illinois, they got this guy. I think his name's like Terrence Shannon Jr. But he's really good. He put up almost 30 in that matchup, and I've been watching him throughout the tournament. He's a projected top pick. This guy is just electric, and he can just absolutely command this team. So he's playing really well. I think if they have any shot at beating UConn, no offense to Illinois, they got to get this guy going. They got to get everyone playing really well and got to get UConn struggling. You got to bring it to them. That's the only way you're going to beat them. You got to get rough. You got to get nasty, and you just got to try your best against these guys because they're not going to let up. They just excel at everything they do. So I think that's going to be a really good game, though. I think it's going to be closer than people think. I like Illinois a lot. And I think they're going to be the first team that actually gives UConn a game. And so we're going to kind of see how UConn responds. So unless they beat them by like 30, which, who cares? But like, tune into that game. I think that one's going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, UConn for me, the earliest memory of UConn is freaking Kemba Walker, man. So
they've always been like this, dude.
Yeah, UConn's a dog, like you said. They've always been a dog. So let's go UConn.
UConn's good. It's gonna be hard to see him. Hard to see him go. We'll see who can take him out. But we're gonna move on to the West, final region, but perhaps the most interesting region you got overall. North Carolina finally goes down. One of the 1 seeds is taken out. UNC, who I had picked to win the tournament in one of my brackets. So sad. But they got beat by an SEC team in Alabama, who played an amazing game. I mean, these guys, if you watch that game, they played outstanding. I mean, every single time UNC did something, just like, oh my gosh, like that's a huge play. Alabama, bam, counterattack, 3, you're done. And it's like, oh, okay. All right, we're on offense again. It's like, oh my, this is a quick team. Alabama might be one of the quicker teams in this tournament, which is insane. You said you watched that game?
Yeah, I was so surprised by the way that Alabama, just after everything that UNC was throwing at them, they threw it back, but it was like +1.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And but the thing is UNC, to me, when I was watching that game, looked like the better team. Like throughout the entire game, they looked like the better team, but Alabama just wouldn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's so many different sporting events where if you let them stay close, you got to be careful at the end. And Alabama didn't let up at the end. Mm-hmm. Like I was waiting the entire game to be like, okay, there we go. Finally, Alabama took like a blip, right? Like they messed up just a little bit, but no, they were on the entire game. And that's what you have to do in March Madness to win these games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because now, and now they're going up against an even tougher opponent, arguably, right? So it's like you've got so many stories in this one, but no, that was, I think, my favorite game of the tournament so far. If I had to rank the games that I've watched,
I think so too. I was glued on that game. It was so close for the entire game. It was like, what the heck is happening? And it's like, okay,
bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, Bama's for real. But they got a matchup with the number 6 seed Clemson, who I think they were saying it was like it's their first time going to the Elite Eight in like, I don't know. I'm gonna butcher the stat, but it was like the past like however many years, like 30 something years. They haven't been here in a long time, basically. And so
I'll take back my previous statement. I said they may have a harder opponent.
Emphasis on
out the window.
Emphasis on may. No, Clemson beat Baylor and they beat them by 8, which is a pretty good win. And then they went on and they beat Arizona, and I think they beat them pretty convincingly. It was kind of that same situation with that Bama game. They just kept coming back, like, or they just kept showing up. You know what I mean? Clemson, I think, was in the lead for a lot of this game too, and I think they just kept like, all right, we're just going to continue to do our thing. And they had a lot of really good success down in the paint, and they were cooking, like they were just playing their game, and Arizona really just didn't know what to do. And they were just, at the end of it, they just really couldn't get, past Clemson. Clemson was kept scoring. And Arizona was like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? So Clemson, they look really good playing against Bama. I'm going to have to take Bama. I think Bama is still the superior team. Any team who beats North Carolina is a team that I think is going to make a deep run in this tournament. Bama is that guy. They're those guys, But we got a bunch of good matchups tonight, later on, and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Like I would watch that UConn Illinois game. Bama Clemson's going to be good. Great, they're all good. Like just watch literally all of them.
Yeah,
If you
they're all
could.
going to be great. And this whole weekend we got games on. So
I know.
tune into to all those games. I know what I'm going to be doing this weekend, and it's even supposed to be raining here in California. So it's like, whoa, okay, March
I
Madness on
know,
one
yeah.
TV, video games
And
on the other.
I think I'm gonna assume we're probably gonna pick the final four. I think that would be fun. I think we could pick the
Yeah,
final four because we can kind of see it coming at least. Because
for
it's
sure.
yeah, because it says it's on April 6th and April 8th, which is Saturday and a Monday, which is odd. But yeah, definitely. I think we. Oh, okay. They're both on four in the end. The championship's on that Monday. So yeah, we can totally predict that, and we can predict our winner. A lot less. It's a lot easier than predicting the whole bracket. We'll get at least one of them right. Hopefully, we got a
Yeah,
50% chance to
hopefully.
pick a winner, unless we pick the same winner. Then it's 25. But
There you go.
we'll get
Nice
different.
math.
Yeah, big math.
We're nailing that. Hey, my big tournament winner was Houston, so
They're
I'll
still
just give
in.
that away. I did one bracket, and I took Houston. You know what? I don't know why. Just had a bit of a feeling. It's Houston's year. We'll see. But then you have the great matchup that they have tonight, right? Nice. The matchup that they have tonight. So it's like there's just so many good games, and I can't wait to watch them. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really everything we got today in terms of sports talk. A little bit shorter of an episode this week. Next week we'll be back with more prospect profiles. Next week we'll probably hit linebackers, and then I'll probably throw in another position group at you because we're getting really close to draft time. It's already almost April. And as soon as April rolls around, we're going to blink and it's going to be the last week in April and the draft is going to be going. So like I said earlier in the podcast, I've been saying it the whole time, every episode up until I'm going to keep saying it. We are live streaming the draft, so make sure to tune in to the first round of the NFL draft on our YouTube channel. The week before the draft is going on, we will not be live streaming, but we will have a mock draft that we will put up, and that will be our episode. So I know I've been getting questions about my mock draft. Why haven't I released it yet? I usually release about 4 to 5 versions of it, but this year I just want to do one. Yes, my mock draft is already done and it's been done for a long time. And I'm going to look at it right before we do the podcast and see if I'm going to change anything. But if you also want to learn about these prospects, go to rdhsports.net or any of our social media channels. And I've got every single one of these prospect profiles already up there for you. And last thing I'll talk about with the NFL draft is the episode. Before the episode that we do the mock draft, I release my top 50 players. So we're going to talk about those guys as well. So we got top 50 players coming at you. Then we got mock draft. Then we got the actual live stream of the draft. So your draft coverage is here if you need it. And Tanner's the basketball guy. So we're going to keep hitting on all these March Madness things. And we'll have in a couple more guests every now and then too. So Tanner, I think this was a good episode.
This was a very good
Let's go
episode.
ahead. Let's go ahead and end this thing.
I'm gonna go find that dude who ran my doorbell though. I'm gonna get you. If it's one of you guys though, head over to the website. Head over to rdh.sports on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, and send us your questions because I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna ask you why you're ding dong ditching me. But that was a good episode. Let's do it next week, Chad.
See you, folks.